All right. So I'm going to move your arm around a little bit.
Forgot I have hairy underarms, so.
Well, that's disgusting. I can't possibly work on you.
No, it's just not gonna look great on your video.
We'll put blurry spots there for you.
Okay.
Why is your armpit censored? It just is, okay?
They'd be so curious.
They would. I want to know what's going on there. I mean, I could put a little sticker of something there if you prefer.
Emoji with smiley.
There you go. This anterior pectoral region is another important area to work. Pec Major for sure, Pec Minor as well. And there are lots of ways that we get in here and try to work and use our thumbs. And those aren't bad ways to treat, but they're thumb intensive. So I prefer to try to mix it up and use other parts of the hand. The pisiform is certainly a good one to press into this area. If you're thinking about Pec Major, you can externally rotate and internally rotate the arm. So let me know if it's too much.
I thought it would be, but.
The fifth metacarpal head is also a wonderful one for this area. You can press in and gently rotate rather. Certainly possible to use elbows in here. I don't tend to do that as much, but you can if you want. Just reach over the edge of the table here. Gently lean in. I don't tend to do any internal-external rotation when I do that. If you're trying to get to Pec Minor, it takes quite a bit of work to get under Pec Major, and pressing through it like that is about the only way to get it without really digging in the armpit. That four-finger grasping is the only way really to get into it from the side. That can be a little intense, so just let me know.
That's bad shit.
If you prefer things like pip joints and you want to work the Pec Major, you can drag from the center of that pectoral region out towards the shoulder. I tend not to cross over the head of the humerus. Even if I'm in this sort of position, I'll just drag down towards it because it doesn't feel good when you run over it with bony tools. So that's fair game. Pec Minor is often involved in a lot of shoulder issues, but probably the most undertreated, overworked muscle in this whole shoulder girdle is the subscapularis. I find a ton of people with problems here. If you've forgotten your anatomy, subscap is on the front of the scapula, between the scapula and the rib cage. It's basically sandwiched in there with the serratus anterior, although it's closer to the scapula than serratus. To get to it, what we're going to be thinking about, there's no good way for me to do it. If I was doing it on that side, I'd be in your way. What we want to think about, though, is with the arm abducted and externally rotated, we're going to find the rib cage here with our fingers. So I have 4 fingers pressing in, find the rib cage. If I push down, I'll feel the edge of the scapula against the pads of my fingers, and I'm going to split the difference at a 45, and I'm going to bring her arm back in a little bit to take some of that tension off of it, and I'm going to gently but firmly put my fingers between her scapula and her rib cage. Okay. This one is tricky because you have to, once you get in there, you basically have to stay put. It's much more painful to come out and go back in than it is just to leave your fingers in there. But you have to, yeah, although my pinky's not really doing much in this position. I'm going to gently externally rotate the arm and internally rotate the arm to lengthen and shorten subscap while I work. If you have somebody that really needs it stretched, you can leave those fingers there, and lifting up that elbow will give you a stretch while you work. Let me know if it's too much.
Okay.
Strange.
Weirdly good.
Okay. Hurt so good is a common one. This is the spot my patient says is the root of all evil when I get in there. My favorite way to treat it is to bring the arm forward, which pinches the scapula against the ribs with your finger in there. and then gently make some circles. Lightened up a little bit, is that okay?
That's good.
And ideally you want to kind of gradually make those circles bigger and bigger, but it's really patient comfort. Just do what you can.
You're using 4 fingers?
Yep. Yeah. You're not going to fit anything bigger than fingers in there, and it's better to use fingers than thumb. Yep. The reason I prefer my fingers, besides just not wanting to work my thumb, is that puts me in a palm down position, so the back of my hand is towards breast tissue, not the palm of my hand, and I'm not reaching in and overworking my thumb like this. Subscap is one of those that if you actually test their shoulder range of motion, which is better done prone than supine, and they have limited external rotation, you can get in there and spend 4 or 5 minutes working subscap and come back and test and see an improvement in external range of motion. It's surprising how effective treating it is when it's short and limiting range of motion. If they're having internal rotation problems, that's more teres minor and infraspinatus. But if they have an external rotation, subscap is usually the key. So. If you're not sure if you're in there, picking that arm up will tell you. If you can't feel the rib cage against the nail bed and the scapula on the other side of the pad of the fingers, you're not in between the two. And it varies. Some people you really can just barely get the tip of your finger in there, and other people you can get, you know, all the way into your pip joints. I had one patient who was having this horrible shoulder pain, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on, and they decided it was the tip of her scapula rubbing her rib cage. So they took the entire half of the scapula out and they cut the bottom out. And in doing that, they had to reattach a lot of musculature, and it didn't help, of course. She still had her shoulder pain. And because of that, she had this crazy extra mobility. And the way that I got it to go away, the pain, was by taking my entire fist and putting it under her scapula and using my pip joints to work subscap, basically. And her pain went away after. It was not a pleasant thing to have worked, but I'd put her in a chair and hold the back of the scapula and cram my whole fist in there. Well, I was trying to help her. So, most people you can't get anything but the tips of your fingers in, but most people haven't had their shoulder cut apart like that, and you don't need anything else. You can get in there and work. So that's our subscap. Working for like the bicep and upper arm, all the same stuff we've already talked about for all the other extremity areas holds true. Just like we treated hamstrings, we can think about pressing with the knuckles, in this case the 5th metacarpal head, with or without the shortening and lengthening aspect.
That was really good.
Awesome.
I need it.
You can work both the long and short head of the bicep that way. Our 2-finger or 4-finger rather grasping can be done on either head of the bicep as well, hooking one, coming in and digging with the other fingers, so you're avoiding thumb use. Pip joints, just like we used on the adductors, can be used here, running down both long and short heads. We just want to be careful on the brachial plexus and artery on this medial side. If you go in and you're pressing and you feel a pulse, move. We're not trying to massage the brachial artery. There's no benefit to that. I can get in here and work. If you want to make little passes, you can go up with the 5th metacarpal head and back down with the pip joints. No problem. There are lots of things we can do for the forearm in this position. I tend to work mostly the extensors in this position and save the flexors for when they're prone, but it depends. You know, if you're doing a lot of the standard kind of grabby, graspy techniques where you're rotating the forearm and digging with thumbs and fingers, this is fine. But we're trying to avoid that with our thumbs. So I'm more likely to lay this down and to work on the extensor compartment here, and when she's flipped over, I can work on the flexor compartment. Logan, do you mind grabbing me a little bit more lotion? Because I don't want to tear up her skin. That thumb work on the forearms feels really good to the person getting it, but it feels like a bad trade to me because I'm helping her forearms by overworking mine, and that's not sustainable. How many people can I help before I've trashed my hands?
That's where you add a mutual touch online service to Try it.
If a patient ever offers to massage you back, that's a bad sign. That is a red flag. A big one. My favorite tool to work on the forearm is my elbow, even more than my knuckles. I like to come in and use the blade of the ulna so my forearm is horizontal rather than just the point, and to track directly up the extensors or flexors. We'll do those later. Doesn't make a difference really if you go down or up, but I like to be able to stabilize it here and go up, so that's what I tend to do. If you find a particular spot that needs more attention, you can certainly use the tip. Just be very gentle with how hard you push down. It's really easy to be too much. And of course you can work that little jostle into it. One thing to be careful of when using your ulna or olecranon is running up over bony prominences. If you're not real comfortable yet using your elbow and feeling when you get to that, you can always do what we call finger blocking in the acupuncture world, where you put something right on that bony prominence so that as I run up to it, I run into my finger and I know I need to stop. I don't slide up over top of it. But if you're not comfortable, it's too strong to use the forearm, we can certainly use the knuckle. Again, I'm generally not sitting with this table height. It's kind of the easiest, but I can work with that 5th metacarpal head coming up. Or my biciform. Take your pick. She isn't slapping me, so I haven't reached that threshold quite yet. I tend to reserve the light, gentle, graspy stuff, my thumb use, for that light, gentle, kind of make nice after you've done some deep work. So after I've been digging in there for a few minutes with my forearm, I'll come back and just gently kind of make nice before I move on to another area. If you're into really stretching and moving the muscles while you work, then you're restricting a little bit of what you can use, because I can't press that hard without using my thumb to counter it in these positions, or I'm just going to move the arm around. So you can do a little bit of like pip work, pulling down or stripping down the extensors in a stretched position, but you can't push all that hard. It's just kind of an awkward position. So I tend to prefer just to work it against the table instead of moving it. If I'm going to use this sort of position, then I'm going to have to use my thumb a little bit and get in here. If you have somebody with decent shoulder mobility and you want to work both the flexors and extensors in a supine position, you can do that. You just have to be able to lay the arm up in this corner position. Not everybody's shoulder will let that happen, so it kind of depends. I have a patient with shoulder problems. They don't have anything torn that they can find on an MRI, but they have a lot of shoulder pain. And this position, when we first started, was completely impossible. They have a lot of forearm and elbow issues as well, so we are having to flip-flop them all around. We've gotten them where he can move enough to get in this position now. So a lot of times to work these flexor compartment muscles, I will put him up in this position, and I can come in with my elbow. Just gently work. And my fingers and thumb don't have to do any work. Just use the blade of that ulna. You'll be surprised with a little playing how specific you can get with the tip of that olecranon. So if Pronator Teres, which runs like this, is my problem, I can come in just above that medial malleolus. You know it's the afternoon. Medial epicondyle, and literally follow the fibers of Pronator Teres right across. and get in there. If it's more digitorum, flexor digitorum, those fibers run more along the ulna, so I can come right in here and track along those. If you're trying to be specific and you're unsure, you can always have them make the motion you're trying to deal with. So if I'm trying to find Pronator Teres, I can come in here and press where I think it is and have her pronate, turn her palm this way, give her a little resistance. So try to rotate your palm for me. Try to turn like that, and I'll resist you. Again. Yep, you can feel it stand up underneath that olecranon. If it's the digitorum I'm over here working on, which as a body worker you can imagine hers needs some work, I'll just have them wiggle.
This is amazing.
Good deal.
Never stop.
I'll just have you wiggle your fingers for me, and you'll feel those muscles moving under the elbow. So make the patient do the work a little bit instead of me. Flexor digitorum superficialis and profundus is often considered to be the muscle that is the reason muscles are called muscles. So I'll give you another Jeopardy fact while we're working on her forearm. Well, I'll ask you the question. Do you know why muscles are called muscles? Oh, you can't cheat then.
Is it a from the Latin word for mice?
It is, little mice, musculosus. And it's because they look like little mice running around under the skin when you flex and extend those fingers. Didn't know you were full of little mice, did you? So, with your partner, start up here with Pec Major, Pec Minor, using the knuckle, the pisiform, or the elbow. Come down into the shoulder, play with subscap with your fingertips. Work your way down through the bicep with your knuckles or pisiform or forefinger grasping. And then get into the forearm and play with your knuckles and your elbows and your pisiform.
Is there anything with deltoid?
We can, but it's no different than what we were doing here. So, pip joints, pisiform, all the same.
Not anything special.